This week, the U.S. Supreme Court gave the Trump administration the green light to move forward, at least temporarily, with plans to slash the federal workforce. The justices overwhelmingly sided with Trump's administration. Only one justice was disagreeing, calling the decision dangerous and overreaching. The ruling clears the way for deep workforce reductions. Some departments are preparing to cut half their staff. The decision does not decide whether the firings are legal. Ongoing lawsuits will determine if the executive order oversteps constitutional bounds. Here to make more sense of this and what we're hearing about it is Emory Law Professor Jonathan Nash. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. As we said, there's plenty of unanswered questions about this ruling. Why do you think the justices went the way that they did?
Well, I think the bottom line is that there are sort of two reasons. One is the challenge that was brought was too early. The government hadn't even had a chance to develop fully its plans to reduce the workforce across different government departments. And the other thing is that the executive order directed the agencies that are going to do this to do so in accordance with existing law. So there's no claim that the executive order on its face said, just go fire people. We don't care what the law says. And I think the court looked at that and said, well, that's what we have in place. We have to at least see what the government is going to do, how it's going to implement this before we declare anything proper or improper.
In your opinion, do you think the executive branch actually has that kind of power to bypass Congress and legally put the plan like this one into place?
Well, I think the court is saying no one's bypassed Congress yet. Now, it could be an issue. There will be. There already are some other litigations that are putting a pause on some of this. And if the government does try to bypass Congress, go beyond what Congress has authorized, then I do think you'll see lower courts, and maybe the Supreme Court gets back into this, saying you can't do that.
All right, so one justice, we talk about Justice Jackson, calling this the ruling a wrecking ball to the federal workforce. Legally speaking, is there any real check on how far this could go?
Well, I think the answer is yes. And Justice Sotomayor, in her concurring opinion, she joined the court and said, government can at least go forward and say what they're going to do. But once they say what they're planning, if what they're planning, as you put it, bypasses Congress, goes beyond what the law authorizes, then the courts do have the power, and it would be proper for the courts to stop this. And my guess is if that does happen, you'd get more than just those two justices saying it's not proper.
Yeah.
There are limits here.
Okay. How might this affect the ongoing cases in the lower courts?
Well, like I said, there are some other litigations involving unionized employees, specific departments that have already put in place blocks on firing employees. Those cases are going to, I think, continue. I think you're also going to get more cases. You're likely to get cases department by department.
Yeah. Once
these plans roll out, challenging what's happening. So I think you're likely to see that. The only other thing I'd say is this ruling is just a general statement to the lower courts. You can't just, some lower court judges are just stopping what's going on too soon. You're not waiting until we see the actual contours here. Courts decide cases, the court is saying. They don't just say, this sounds dangerous. You can't do that. You have to actually see what the precise action the government's going to take is before the court should step in and enter an injunction to stop the government in its tracks.
Yeah. If you're a federal worker out there and you're watching this, what protections do you have?
Well, if you're unionized, you still have union protections, and beyond that, you have whatever civil service protections are in place that Congress put in place. You may also have courts stepping in to assert those rights as things continue. But it definitely is a time of uncertainty because the government is allowed to go forward and sort of say what it's going to do. And that backstop of an injunction isn't there anymore, a broad injunction. So we'll have to see, workers will have to see, we'll all have to see what the government comes up with, how they're planning to do this department by department, and assess it then.
All right, Professor Nash, really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for your insight today.